It's 100% entertainment, 100% electricity, 100%
Pipebomb Radio with your host, Felix Olmedo.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man.
And Austin James.
That's the bottom line.
Welcome everybody to Pipebomb Radio tonight on this very nice Tuesday evening. For a change here in the summertime, especially here in California, the weather is so strange. You would think it'd be, some days it hits over 100 degrees, other days it's right around a nice, fresh, nice, cool 65 degrees, and days like that I definitely love. But anyways, welcome to the show.
And
I'm joined as always with
thing's
Austin.
for sure.
What's up?
I'm doing great, but I'm saying one thing's for sure. You guys might have it straight up in California, but down here in Louisiana, it's unpredictable. I promise you, it's either hot, cold, or in between. Never the same.
I've heard, and I think I've read somewhere, somebody else said that too, that the weather is, like at least in the, if not in the South, but also in the Midwest, it's 50 degrees over there. I'm like, wow, can I move there?
Well, it's really wishy-washy. It's one of those things that you probably determine how long winter's going to be in California, but when in Louisiana, you never know. I mean, it can extend to April and then some. I'm like, Jesus Christ. You know, you never know, but I guess I like being, unpredictable and stuff, so Louisiana is my guy.
Louisiana's your... New Orleans is your girl, huh?
New Orleans is great at times, even though it's crazy people in New Orleans.
Can you say New Orleans?
New Orleans, I guess is how people down your place say it, We're the orange people in California.
The orange people, shut your face. Anyways, tonight we actually have a great guest. I'm going to let you talk about this since you're about to bring it up.
I was going to say, tonight we have a current CWA, I'm going to stress up, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. I hate abbreviations. I'm not going to say it. So current Championship Wrestling from Hollywood commentator and former TNA Impact Wrestling commentator Todd Keneley. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm saying that honestly, I think Todd Keneley was such a good commentator in TNA. I loved him so much, and due to they had some budget cuts, he had to be let go. But the door's still open, so I'm hoping that he's gonna be back sooner or later. I think it's he's due that.
And I would definitely like to hear, because I know we had another announcer on here earlier this year with Scott Hudson. And everybody has their start somewhere. I mean, obviously, I'm sure he probably started out as a wrestling fan, but I always love to hear how they come up in the business and the opportunities that arise for them, they take advantage of them. Obviously, you've seen Todd on there with Kaz and Mike Tenay, so, yeah. And then, of course,
they have to be that guy.
Over to work with, I believe he's working with, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I am, the heck is his name? Matt Stryker. Wasn't he working with him at one point? I'm
not sure. I don't think so, but maybe they crossed paths.
I think it was maybe a brief stint in another company. I'm thinking I thought it was for some reason the one out here in Hollywood, but I'm guessing I'm wrong. I want to ask him about that because I know I've seen that he had worked with him a little bit.
But what's cool about Todd Keneley is that he, they had Taz, who was that funny guy all the time. He's always making comments, and that are usually funny and everything. And then there's Mike Tenay on the side who's serious but can still be funny at times. But there's Todd Keneley who really calls it down the middle, and calls it how he sees it. And I loved his reactions to certain things that happen, and I loved, how when he commentated, I thought it was so good what he did. And when he was let go, it was pretty sad.
It's just like the scenario with the budget cuts they're doing in WWE with all the stars being let go. So many great talents being let go. No more holla play, no more tag team matches. Nobody likes to get let go. And you know what, though, for in Todd's case, he moved on and created another opportunity for himself and is the voice right now for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood.
And look,
so without any further ado, shall we go ahead and give him a call? Or go ahead,
absolutely. I'm saying I know he's going to be back in TNA one time or another, That's his place to be. I know it.
I think they would be silly not to bring him back, but that's just my opinion. All right. We're going to just get that call through. I'm going to get his number here. And you should be expecting our call here momentarily. Okay, well, didn't go through, so I'll try it a different way. For some reason, I put it in with the 1. Let's try it without the 1.
Yeah, these numbers are tricky. You never get it right. There's always a problem.
They are tricky. Let me see something here. Could be something maybe with the way I formatted it, which tends to be an issue for me. I tend to never get it right, but it's cool. We always figure it out. Try this again.
This is the part everybody loves. They want to either see you fail or succeed.
There we go. At least we got a ringing now. Well, you know what? We'll give it a couple minutes and we'll try again. I know sometimes a lot of our guests find it confusing, considering you're in Louisiana, I'm in California, and we're calling from a New York number. The number to the show, the area code happens to be in the New York area, but which kind of throws everybody off, and I can't blame them. This is a blog talk thing. Unfortunately, we have to get the numbers they give us, which, come to think of it, when I see other shows that are based out of other parts, I'm going to say like on the East Coast, they give them California numbers, which I can't figure that out for why they do like that. But nonetheless, that is the case. We will try it one more time in just a few minutes. Maybe at least until we can get him on there, because he knows we're supposed to be on tonight. So have no fear, we will get the show on the road here.
Cool. I'm gonna send him a message right now and see if he didn't recognize our number. Some of his, I don't think I sent him our number. I just gave him the option, or you want to call us, or you want us to call him. Okay, I'm gonna send him a message here.
Cool. In the meantime, I can mention the successful tribute show we did for Sensational Sherry on Sunday night. We had Sherry's son Jared on the show. We had her best friend and more like her sister Kathy on the show. I had planned so many clips to play besides the one I did. But when they both started talking about just telling some Sherry stories, I just shut up and listened. I just sat back and just listened to other stories. I think they brought more realness to it than the clips could ever bring. I mean, the clips basically showed the character of Sensational Sherry, whereas they knew the person.
Yeah, I think it was an excellent show. I mean, it talked about them every
very
single second of it.
Everybody I've talked to, they said they really got teared up with it, and it really meant a lot that they got to listen to two people who knew who she was on a personal level.
Yes, and she was actually inside of spoilers for anybody that didn't watch WWE Countdown tonight, but she was actually on WWE Countdown as one of the most deadliest divas. I think that's what they framed the title as tonight.
Check it out.
Yeah, she was one of the most deadliest divas, top 10. I mean, there wasn't a notable mention or anything. She was in the top 10. I can't remember exactly what number. I think it was like a 6, I think. So,
how are you going to go and give a spoiler? You're really going to give us a spoiler? I hate spoilers, damn it. Oh, well.
Okay, let's get Todd a call right now.
Yeah, I'm going to get
him. Call him back and get him on the line.
Okay, there you go.
Hello.
Hey, Todd. This is Felix and Austin from Pipebomb Radio. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing fabulous. Thanks for asking, and thank you for joining us tonight. I know Austin's been in contact with you quite a bit to make sure we can make this happen. So I'm going to let him go ahead and ask you all the questions he needs to ask, and then I'll take my turn.
Sounds like a plan.
Definitely, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight. We've been wanting to talk to you for a long while because we really appreciate all the work you've done in your commentating career and everything. I just want to get your your thoughts on and how everything is and how you got started. Basically by asking you, I know you actually started in high school. You were a defensive tackle on your football team, and did it ever come to mind you want to become a wrestler, or was it did you watch wrestling as a child and decide that you want to become a commentator? I mean, was it one or the other?
Yeah, a lot of my childhood is defined by pro wrestling. I was a huge wrestling fan, watched it religiously. I'll admit it, I was a huge Hulkamaniac. When he was on, I would dress in red and yellow, man, and hit it up. Went to a lot of house shows at LA Sports Arena. The first show I ever went to, live show. And now I think fans are just so lucky now that there's so many great independent groups, and wrestling is so accessible. For me as a kid, I really had to wait till WWF at the time would come into town, which luckily enough they came in frequently. But first show I ever went to, I remember the main event was Hulk Hogan and Big John Studd at the LA Sports Arena in '85, and I mean I was completely hooked. And you mentioned me being a football player. When I was in high school, we would have to give these pregame speeches and to fire the team up. That was a team captain, and inevitably my speeches always ended with some sort of catchphrase. It would either be, I was a huge Taker fan as well, so it would either be, rest in peace, whoever we were playing, or my number was 72, so the speeches often would end with, what you're going to do when number 72 and the Diablo crew kick the, deep out of you. But so wrestling has always been a huge part of my life, and I always really did connect with the commentary growing up. If you ask people, a lot of people have a different answer. Some will say Gordon Soley is the greatest of all time. Some will say Jim Ross, and I think they're both excellent broadcasters. But I always really connected most with Gorilla Monsoon. I just thought that Gorilla added such an aura to every match he called. And if you think back, I mean, no one will forget calls like the immovable force, versus or irresistible force versus the immovable object. I just say no one will forget it, and then I mess it up. But there was a way that Gorilla called the matches that made him seem so epic.
Definitely, he was the guy that.
I just wanted to mention too one more thing about Gorilla. He always referred to WrestleMania 3 as a happening. I just happened to throw that in there anyway. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Austin. I know I cut you off. Go ahead, Mel.
No, I was going to say, Gorilla was the guy, those commentators that you remember are the ones that they have their voice playing out in 20 years past that. I mean, you still hear Gorilla's voice in, packages that are for WWE and stuff to this day. So that just proves how much of a, entity that he was on the commentating table.
Yeah, even guys like, with Undertaker, that's one of those sound bites that you always hear on those Undertaker compilations is, when he, I think it was from when he first debuted at Survivor Series, and it's just Gorilla saying, "How on earth is anybody going to stop this guy?" And that's one that just still resonates. He just had a real gift and had a presence and had just such amazing, and it's so important too, the chemistry with your partners. He had such great chemistry with Jesse on all the WrestleManias they called. He had obviously legendary chemistry with Bobby the Brain Heenan, and it was just great to listen to him do his thing.
Wow. With your commentating career, I mean, obviously you started doing that, and you brought something really, really different to your commentating. At least for when we started hearing you first off on Impact Wrestling. If you don't mind me asking, how did that come about that they reached out to you, or you might have reached out to them about coming aboard and being the third man?
It wasn't something that was overnight, that's for sure. I had been at it for quite a few years, but in terms of really what opened the door to TNA, I believe it was having the opportunity to work with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff on a few projects, because I worked with them on Celebrity Championship Wrestling on CMT, was a ring announcer on that show, and then worked behind the scenes, and then got to live out pretty much fantasy camp by going on Hulk's Australia tour in 2009. It was Hulk and Flair in the main event, and a lot of other guys on that show, great talent and classic names and legends, and did play-by-play on that. And it just so happened that on the last match of that tour, they were filming it for Australian TV, and Eric Bischoff was on color with me for Hogan versus Flair, which was pretty surreal. And I did a lot of other stuff on that tour too, in terms of like creative and kind of being a liaison with the production crews out there in Australia. And I think really it was just a great working interview and a great opportunity to be seen by those two guys. And that was right on the cusp of them going to TNA. And at the end of the tour, they mentioned, hey, we'd love to get you in there. And about, I guess it was about 3 years later that I actually was there. But I stayed in contact with Eric Bischoff throughout, and then out of the blue, he hit me up and said, hey, send me your latest stuff. We're thinking about maybe shaking things up a little bit. And so I dealt with him and Bruce Pritchard, and next thing I knew, I was flying out there for Impact. And that was a very interesting day, because I was told I was coming in more or less for an audition. And when I got there and went to the meeting, I was told that JB and I were calling the first hour live. So it's like, baptism by fire for sure. Yeah.
And it must have been such a compliment for a person like Hulk Hogan, the immortal, to ask you to be a commentator or a ring announcer on his tour and being a part of what he does. And to bring you into, a company like TNA Impact Wrestling, you just came in when they started going on the road, when they started kind of like branching out and going across the United States. So were you enjoying the travel, traveling from city to city, or was that something you weren't accustomed to?
I wasn't really accustomed to it. I'd done, some travel obviously with the tours and with some of the other stuff I'd done. I've called some MMA too. I worked for Showtime Sports when Elite XC was on there. I called their undercard fights, and I had called some other MMA pay-per-views and Chuck Norris's World Combat League, and those shows were on the road typically. But in terms of the week after week, but when we went on the road, it was actually every other week, because we would have one episode live and then film a second taped episode. But at first, I came in at the very end of the Impact Zone days, or at least the initial Impact Zone run. And that was a nice way of kind of getting my feet wet with them, because I got accustomed to the Orlando airport. I knew how to get to the hotel. I knew how to get to the venue. I knew where everything was. And so then when all of a sudden you're on the road and you got to find new buildings and new hotels and get there on time and find your way around, I was happy that I had those few months at the Impact Zone at first. But that being said, being on the road was great, especially really have fond memories of the Lockdown pay-per-view in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome. I think we had around 10,000 people there. It was a great crowd, huge crowd for TNA. And that was a blast. And the week after that, we were in Chicago. And if you remember, at that year's Lockdown was when Bully Ray was exposed as a leader of Aces and Eights and won the World Heavyweight title. So that crowd was hot in Chicago when he came out to open the show, and I really enjoyed just the energy of being on the road and the different crowds and crowds that were passionate to see the product. And I think that obviously they had a lull there, or they've had their ups and downs with going on the road. TV, I think, always looked pretty strong. House shows are certainly up and down, but I think that they're really going to get that upswing again coming up, going back to the East Coast with the Pennsylvania shows coming up in Bethlehem, and definitely I think they'll pull out all the big guns for the New York City shows, and I hope those crowds are rabid for them.
And
New York is pretty crazy, actually. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say with 2013 Aces and Eights, I think, in my opinion, I think that was the hottest time in TNA at least for the past 5 years at least, for that storyline of the Aces and Eights invading TNA. I think it was so well done. And for you to be a part of something like that, I'm getting excited talking about it, because I was excited to be watching and how everything unveiled to having Bully Ray, because honestly, I wouldn't have seen, Bully Ray to be that, unveil the leader of the Aces and Eights. I didn't see it coming, and that was something that TNA did very, well job at doing, to keep it a secret.
I think they did. I'm a fan again. I was an old school fan, so I was a fan back in the day of WWF when it was the Big Four, when it was Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and you had months in between to tell a story and really build up feuds and matches. And so the fact that they took, I think it was 9 months to really build that story before, and there were so many little nuances and little swerves that, that the fact that they were willing to invest that kind of time in a storyline to try and get that payoff, I think speaks volumes, because that's really kind of an old school approach. So much nowadays it's that kind of crash TV and let's throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what resonates with the fans and what sticks. And with that, they really took the time, and then they really exploited that, because there was an episode of Impact where it was kind of Bully showing step by step the evolution of that plan and how he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. And only if you take that kind of time and put that many nuances in it can you have a recap like that, and to where you watch it back, like, oh, little things you may not have even noticed, like, oh, then that happened and that. And so, no, I agree. I thought it was really well done, and being part of it was a kick, because, of course, once you had Taz revealed, I'm sitting at the commentary booth with him and Tenay, so we're kind of part of the action too, because obviously Taz is going to promote his Aces and Eights propaganda while he's on announce during that storyline, and so it was very interactive.
That's for
sure for us.
That's what hooked me to Taz when he and when the Bully and Brooke wedding, he unveiled himself, and like that was the point in that entire thing that's when it really brought me in, and like, oh my God, well if Taz is going to be unveiled, who else is going to be a part of this? Right.
Yeah, no, it was cool. It was cool. And then, if you remember too, they had Devon, exposed first long before we ever knew that Bully was involved. And so then in the end, it all ends up making sense. But no, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was very fun time to be a part of it. And looking back, I think that was definitely great timing, like I said, just because of the crowd reactions. When we did initially go on the road, Bully in that persona with that group behind him was the right type of fuel to the fire that you needed going on the road, because you're going to get some great reactions from the fans, when he walks out there with Aces and Eights.
And I was actually going to touch on, because I know Austin and I were talking about this briefly before you came on. At one point, when I think you had departed TNA, they had put you to work with Matt Stryker in a company up north. I want to say New York. I want to say if it was FWE. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I could have sworn I read somewhere where I had seen that you and Matt were doing commentary for them.
We actually have worked together out on the West Coast at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't long after I left TNA that Matt was released from WWE, and that was the second I saw that, I thought, man, I would love to work with Stryker, because he is such a historian as well, and has that sense of humor, but respects the business and the history, and really can break down the little nuances of the psychology of a match. And I just felt, I really felt that he and I could make a good team. And we had the good fortune of having the opportunity to work together out here, and I really felt that it clicked right off the bat. I loved working with him. At that company, he transitioned into an in-ring role, wrestling. In fact, I just worked a show with him on Sunday. It was a great show, Red Carpet Rumble. They had AJ Styles defended the IWGP title against Trent Beretta. They had Matt Hardy against the promotion's heritage champion, Ricky Mandel. Cole Cabana returned to the promotion that night. Jake the Snake entered the Rumble. I mean, it was a blast. But yeah, I did get to call some matches with Stryker. One that sticks out was a match between Joey Ryan and Scorpio Sky, and it had a big match feel, and they brought it in the ring, and I just felt like Matt and I on commentary really helped complement the action. And I really figured that the teaming of he and I might turn some heads, and I hope that we get a shot to work together somewhere, more down the line.
I wouldn't actually think that maybe possibly, and it's just a suggestion. I don't know exactly as far as your relationship goes with Jeff Jarrett, but I mean, I think it would be pretty doggone sweet if I actually could see you and Stryker doing commentary for his new company somewhere down the line. That would be a pretty dynamic
I would agree. I mean, nothing has been discussed, but I certainly would agree. I would love, now that Matt and I have proved that we work well together, I think we'd be a good fit there. Really do. And with the type of talent that it seems like they would want to attract, I think we would be a good fit to call that in-ring product.
And now thinking about it, that would probably be, if I was in charge, I'm like, that would be that front runner. You and Matt, my God. I'm just thinking about it now. That would be an awesome idea. Put you guys together because, Matt, like you said, I never learned so much from a commentator like I did in Matt Stryker. Because when he commentates, he didn't just call moves out and stuff. He gave you a detailed description behind, like Daniel Bryan doing a bell lock, and he's like, well, Gene LaBelle, and so on. And I just love that about him. He kind of elaborates on little things that make a big difference. But,
he's talking about, we're in the middle of calling a match, and he's talking about, like, hey, quiet down, lay out for a minute. I want to hear their breathing. It'll tell a story of where they are conditioning-wise in this matchup and who has the upper hand. So I have to just shut up and stop what I'm saying so that Stryker can listen, try and listen to the breathing of the two wrestlers. I'm like, that's a first. But, little things like that you wouldn't even think of necessarily. He pulls out of left field, and it made it a lot of fun to work with him because you just never knew what angle he was going to take, but it would always make sense in the end. It would always be a valid point, and likewise, I would throw some stuff at him a lot that would get a chuckle out of him or make him laugh, or we had a lot of fun out there together.
And you actually earlier talked about how you commentated MMA. How do you think there's any kind of difference between commentating MMA and professional wrestling?
I think there is and there isn't. I love that I've done both because I definitely think that I brought a little bit of my pro wrestling commentary sensibility to my MMA and really tried to be high energy and hype it up and I would sit down with the fighters and really. It takes a different kind of guy to step in that cage or in that ring and do what they do. And so try and get the stories and really flesh out a lot of the backstory during some of the fights, if there's some grappling and stuff and you got some time. And on the other hand, with my pro wrestling commentary, I think working in the MMA world really allowed me to also take time to slow down sometimes and really try and analyze the nuts and bolts of what guys are trying to do to their opponent and the psychology and the game plan. So I think that those two styles can really kind of overlap and complement each other.
Right about that. Now, if you had the opportunity to, since as you've progressed in your commentary, and you actually are really, really enjoyable to listen to, but let me ask you now, you mentioned Gorilla being somebody you really enjoyed as a commentator. Would he be somebody that you could say would be your dream partner as far as your partner in crime, a co-host, commentator, not co-host. Hello.
I would say, but Gorilla and I would both be more of a play-by-play. So I would say, I would do my best to kind of try and play that Gorilla role, and I'd love to see how I would have fared with a Jesse the Body Ventura or a Bobby the Brain Heenan. I just thought, especially Jai, I love Gorilla and Jesse, and they called so many of the early WrestleManias, and I also got such a kick out of, how much Jesse would poke at Vince McMahon when they would do Saturday Night's Main Event together. So I think working with either Heenan or Jesse would have been phenomenal.
Now, how was it like to work with New Japan Pro Wrestling? Because I know you did an event called what was it? I can't remember. It was something that Fighting Spirits. It was a full name. I can't say the Japanese part of it though. But you
Sokan Fighting Spirit. They filmed out of the Inoki Dojo in Japan, and CM Punk was on our commentary team. It was myself, Scott Corvair, and CM Punk, and Punk very similar to Stryker in that sensibility that, you know, they have the in-ring experience, so they see things that someone like me just doesn't even notice and can really bring it to the forefront. So my experience in working with CM Punk on commentary is very similar to my experience working with Stryker, and he was great too.
You would never hear that from somebody. Nobody just points out, oh, well, CM Punk's a good commentator, because I don't think he ever I think he needs a lot of credit for being a great commentator, you know, because he was on NXT doing commentary, and I think he was on Raw for a bit also doing commentary, and he did some commentary on Ring of Honor, and I saw the same thing when you mentioned how good of a commentator he is, pulling out those little things. I'm like, amen to that. He's awesome. And I think if you're a wrestler and you go to the commentary position, that kind of helps out with with doing that job.
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, like I said, you pick up on little things, that just the tiny little things and subtleties, and if you can use that to help tell the story of what's going on in there, and that's what commentary really is helping the wrestlers tell the story as well that they're trying to tell in the ring, and just bringing it to the attention of the fans. And he's great at that. But he doesn't, and Stryker in the same way. They know a ton, and they can tell you a ton, but they're not going to bore you to death either. They will do it in a way that's dynamic and entertaining.
Definitely, and I wanted to ask you one last question from me, but I don't think we ever addressed this before, but you're a commentator, you're an announcer, a ring announcer. Was there ever a case where you wanted, like, aspirations to become a wrestler? You know, you're commentating. I mean, was there ever any inspiration for you to actually step in the squared circle?
Yeah, and I did train for a while. I trained at Rick Bassman's Ultimate University, and that's eventually where I ended up starting on commentary was for his UPW promotion, and during the day it was a great time to be there because I got to call some of John Cena's first matches, and that's where I got to call a lot of the early matches for Daniels, Kazarian, Samoa Joe, Victoria, all who came through there. But right after I started training was the time that I started getting scholarship offers and had a chance to go play football at USC. And with the education and everything else, I just couldn't afford at the time to take any chances of getting hurt and messing up that opportunity. So I dropped it after a little while because it was just time to go play football and go to school. But I never lost my love for it, and I was a communication major and journalism major, and it just so happened that my way into the business was through commentary. But over the years, I've also gotten physical when need be. Trust me, I've gotten pulled out of the booth and gotten tossed around a little bit, and I love it.
And you actually,
I just wanted just a quick question, kind of to reiterate more of what Austin was saying, but in a different venue. Considering that you've done the commentary now and are really good at it, would you ever be opposed if they came to offer you a position as maybe hosting your own podcast?
Oh no, I would love that, man. I would love that, and that's really the wave of the business right now. And when you look at, like guys like Austin and Jericho have been, now Goldberg's in the mix, and JR. I mean, there's guys that have very, very popular podcasts, and I would definitely be down with that, and would love to get find the right co-host and try and line up some interviews, and hopefully people would want to listen. But yeah, I would be down for that because you can gain a lot of momentum from that too, and that just seems where the business is at.
And that's Matt Stryker, your co-host. He needs to be your co-host. I'm not kidding. I think that's just when you mentioned it earlier, I'm like, I never thought about it really. You and Matt Stryker need to have a podcast. Have your own show. Commentary team. I mean, that's it for you guys.
We could be revenge of the wrestling nerds.
Yeah,
it could be this generation's Gorilla and Bobby. For all we know. It could be this generation's Gorilla and Bobby.
Yeah, we could have our own primetime wrestling, and we'll inexplicably have the phone there and just pick up random phone calls.
I love it. My last question in this case would be. For fans to keep up with where what you're doing these days with the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, any other ventures you're doing. I know you have a Facebook. I believe you also have a Twitter. Do you dabble in any other social media?
I really haven't, man. Twitter's probably the best place to get me. I stay pretty active on that. It's just at Todd Keneley, and I definitely keep fans posted on what I'm doing. But yeah, the Hollywood stuff's been great. I've worked for years because they were the guys that really helped me get on a lot of those tours, the Hogan tour included. Rikishi and Gangrel and Black Pearl and their whole crew at Knox Pro Entertainment. They've trained a lot of great guys too, including Rusev came through their school. So that was pretty cool actually for them to see Roman Reigns, who's of course part of that Anawai family, a legendary family.
Well, they are so proud of him.
Yeah, and Rusev, who was one of their students that came up through their school, the last two guys in the Battle Royal on Monday. That was pretty awesome for them. But, they've got a thing going called Territory League that's team-based, teams from different cities, and it's a very cool and unique concept. Rikishi, for instance, is like the captain of the Las Vegas team, the Las Vegas High Rollers. Gangrel is one of the captains of the Los Angeles team, the LA Templars. And the way it works is the teams will face off, and there's individual divisions like cruiserweight, women's, tag, heavyweight, and so the teams will send their representative out. They'll have their match, and say the Las Vegas cruiserweight beats the LA cruiserweight. Well, then the Las Vegas team gets 1 point to their overall team score. And at the end, if it's tied up, they have a match called a Warfare, which is kind of like a mix between a Battle Royal and a gauntlet match. And they have conferences and playoffs and the whole bit, and it's really, really fun to call because you get to kind of call it with that sports sensibility of, oh, these guys are down 2, they really need to come back, and on the score, you're calling the score as well, and their strongest division is coming up. So look for that as well because they're really trying to do some big things with that. That's territoryleague.com, and then hollywoodwrestling.com for the championship wrestling from Hollywood. And like I said, man, I'm just so happy to have the opportunities to stay sharp and work with great people, like Stryker. I and it was great. I gotta mention this because, and hopefully he'll hear this or read about it. AJ, I mentioned, wrestled Trent Beretta at the show. He came out, held up the IWGP title. The two were about to lock up. I didn't get a chance to catch up with AJ before the show. And right before the lockup, he jumped out of the ring, came over to the commentary booth, shook my hand, and said, "It's great to see you." So that was just, I was just so floored that he did that, and what a show of respect. And I've got nothing but extreme respect for him. Prior to that, the last AJ match called was him and Kurt Angle at Slammiversary last year. So that was pretty awesome of him, and I really appreciated that. But I'm just looking for the next big opportunity too, man. You mentioned Jarrett with Global Force Wrestling. Very interested in what he's doing. If the door were to, I left TNA on good terms. If the door were ever to open there, and I talked about what a huge WWE fan I've been my whole life. So that's one I'd like to cross off the bucket list too.
Can you imagine calling the action with Michael Cole? My goodness.
I can. I can because I have. I've been flown out to Stanford 3 times and for tryouts, and I called matches with Cole. Called matches with Cole once. Called matches with Joey Styles once, and my first one was actually backstage at a SmackDown taping, and I called with Taz. So that kind of came full circle.
Wow.
But yeah, they never. And I was super nervous too. And I don't think really gave my best, but I think now, if given another opportunity, I'd definitely be ready. They haven't pulled the trigger yet, but never say never.
Well, there's no reason to be nervous when you have all the action on the WWE app. You can actually download it now, so on your iPhone, smartphones, and computers, it's there.
Sell.
Next thing you know, he's going to be plugging the WWE Network.
There you go. Hey, I like the WWE Network, man. I can throw out my old VHS tape collection finally.
I just want that time that me and Felix can have like a sponsor like KFC, and I can come on here like beat it down to the bone, be like KFC fried chicken. Every single. I would love that, but I don't have that. We're not that cool.
Oh my God, you're such a nerd.
There you go. Right? That would bring a whole new meaning to the cross-faced chicken wing.
Yeah. But
you know what? So I have to say, Todd, that you can add Austin to the wrestling nerd herd right there, because he's such a wrestling historian. He loves it to death, and I think he'd have if you three ever did commentary together, I think that'd be pretty sweet.
I'm down, man. I'm down. Let's do it.
And I always say this to people. I mean, when I really am interested in what they're doing, it's very rare that somebody ever actually goes out and you really tackles their dreams, and you did it, and it's rare to do it. And like, why live a life if you don't at least do something remarkable with it? And you definitely have. And I think you have so much more to offer with different opportunities that I know without a doubt it's going to come your way.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. And I say that a lot of people is that, like, if you had told 8-year-old me that, I would have called a Hulk Hogan Ric Flair match, or I would have directed, Roddy Piper for these Piper's Pitch type segments for UPW DVDs, and Hush Hush, I was a druid for The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21. I would have jumped out of my skin, man. I would have been the happiest person alive, and I've had the opportunity to do all those things. So I certainly hope it's far from over. But you know what? I've gotten to do some really great things, and I've got to not shortchange that and count the blessings as well.
No doubt about that. And just wanted to say, Todd, on behalf of Austin and myself, we really, really appreciate you taking time to sit here and just chat with us about, hey, what we all really love, and that's just good old-fashioned wrestling on TV or sports entertainment for those newbie fans that we grew up on when it was still referred to as wrestling. So, appreciate you hanging out with us tonight, and who knows, if you're up for it, maybe sometime next year or in the near future, we'd love to have you come on back.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Let's do it.
Sounds like a plan. Austin, any final words?
That's it for me. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem, guys. Thanks a lot for having me. Take care.
Not a problem. Have a good night.
All right, fight on.
What a cool dude. I like him. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's definitely a talker. You can tell in his voice he's good at what he does.
That guy,
I'm not joking. I really think that between you, him, and Stryker, that would make quite the interesting trio of wrestling nerd herd right there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love his passion. You can hear it through his voice, kind of like David Fuller from IWE and from last week. I love those guys, who have a passion for wrestling, because there's people that are in it for the money, and then there's people that are in it for the wrestling, and those are the best. Those are the best people.
Doing the commentating team. I don't mean to cut you off there, but I could see him and Stryker doing commentating for Jarrett.
I know it's how perfect it is. When in your mind you're like, okay, commentary for Global Force. It's either going to have to be something unique, and that's Matt Stryker and Todd Keneley. It's so perfect.
I mean, I think to me, they try to always put, and at least that's how I saw it. Maybe I'm wrong, but they always try to put Stryker in the play-by-play role, and it just didn't suit him. He's more of a color analyst to me personally. That's just how I see him. If I'm wrong and I misunderstood it, that's just how I understood. That's how I saw them when they try to work him in WWE. He's more of a color analyst, and I think that was never more evident than when he did the Royal Rumble in 2011, and when Big Daddy Cool Diesel came out, and he was basically shitting himself. Excuse my language, but he was freaking out. I mean, he was so into that. I mean, Stryker's good, and I think with Kenley doing the play-by-play and Stryker doing the combination right there.
I'm into that. When you brought that up and saying how good of a commentating team they would be from GWF GFW Global Force Wrestling. if they want this company, I know Jeff Jarrett, if he puts his hand in anything, it's going to be successful for the most part. And I think if they really want to kick it off with a bang, they need to have everything on all cylinders. Matt Stryker and Todd Keneley, and just thinking about it gets me excited in my heart. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it'd be such a great tag team of a commentary team. And like you said, this generation of possibly a Bobby and Gorilla.
And that's a huge compliment, because there was nobody ever like those two. They created that magic. The closest that we came was JR and King, but their magic is different. I mean, JR is definitely one of the best in the world. Nobody can ever take that away from him. And King, well, King is just King. You love him anyway. You love to hate him. You loved him. He was good at what he did. But Bobby.
Yeah, he was also. He loved animals too.
What's that?
Jerry loved animals. Jerry's always loved animals. He likes puppies, and he loves all that.
Yeah, that's
but
pretty cool.
I was actually reading something about TNA earlier today. It was they have this vote, and I shared it, saying
I was going to mention that to Todd. I forgot to mention.
Yeah, the return of the six-sided ring, not yet. I mean, maybe it's a fan vote. So you can either stick with the four-sided ring or the six-sided ring. And I promise you, I voted for the six-sided ring. I told multiple people to vote for the six-sided ring. I mean, they were on that bandwagon before I told them about it, because that's what makes TNA stand out. And every single time I go up to somebody and say, which ring would you want? Do you like the square one or the six-sided one? For TNA, they need to stick with the six-sided ring if they want to turn the company around and really make it, sunny side up and everything about it come back to its normal state and happiness and, of TNA how we used to really like it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what separated TNA from everybody else. Now, I don't know exactly what Jeff and Karen have planned for their company, but like you said, it's really got to stand out, because what TNA, how they stood out was that six-sided ring. That was something unlike I'd ever seen, because I'm sorry, I don't have access to all the independents, and I don't know if they're all doing it, but this is television, this is televised wrestling. And for them to do that six-sided ring, to me, it was something that helped them stand out. What Jim Ross would always say about them standing out, that helped them stand out.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard AJ Styles on Chris Jericho's podcast a couple of weeks ago saying that the six-sided ring was what made TNA stand out as a company on their own, as a separate entity from anything on this earth. That's amazing when you're flipping the channel and you're going, to AMC, then you see Spike. When you see a six-sided ring, that kind of makes you stop and like, oh, that looks cool. Let me stick around and see what's up. And that's what makes it stand out. If they want to change their ways and really change the company around, because I think honestly, and I'm always gonna be a TNA fan, that's what they need to do. They need to change everything and do if one company is doing another thing, they need to do the exact opposite.
On the other hand, TNA's show this past weekend, I didn't catch the live, but I catch the replay. If they did something like that and stuck with it going forward, it could definitely pull a huge change for that company. And I also want to throw out a shout out to former guests, Kevin Von Erich, Marshall, and Ross. You know what? They got in there and they got their feet wet. They got a taste of what it was like to be on television and to be wrestling live in front of the U.S. crowd. I believe, again, not been the first time, but definitely the first time on television or pay-per-view. And to see Kevin get in there barefoot and all, putting that claw on somebody, that was the icing on the cake. I'm not going to lie, I kind of marked out a little bit for that.
Oh, marked out, man. I almost had a heart attack. I'm not even kidding. I was sitting down watching, and I'm like, just watching, and then you see Ross and Marshall getting beat up with a steel chair by Zema Ion and Jesse Gars. And all of a sudden you see a barefoot Kevin Von Erich run in, not even missing a step, and puts on that claw on Zema Ion like he never even missed a single step. I mean, he was so awesome. I think that Texas crowd, they know who the Von Erichs are, and especially we know who the Von Erichs are. The fans know who Von Erichs are, because when they were on with us last year, oh my God, we never had so many people wanting to speak with them and really listen to the show. That was a crazy day.
Say that the VE Nation was in full effect that night. You could see the signs, the crowd reaction when Kevin got in there. The old man still got it, and you know what? I don't think it ever left.
Nope, not a single moment.
And we definitely want to wish best of luck to Ross and Marshall. Hopefully this is not the last time we see them in TNA. Hopefully this is something that could lead to something even bigger and better for them. I'd love to see them stay there.
And one thing that's going to be happening, with TNA this coming Thursday night, not only the return of Matt Hardy and the reuniting of the Hardy Boys in TNA, Tommy Dreamer will actually be returning to TNA Thursday night on Impact Wrestling. So because Dixie Carter called him out last year. Yeah, Tommy called Dixie out because of a House of Hardcore incident that happened with Bully Ray not being able to make it to the show. So it's probably going to tie into what they're doing now. So I'm really interested in seeing what they have. And also my hometown girl of Taryn Terrell in New Orleans. Taryn Terrell is going to be making her return to Impact. And
most people are saying they're wondering if she'll reignite that feud with Gail Kim. that kind of really had a knockdown, drag-out battle earlier this year. Was it late last? Well, anyways, it was this year, I believe.
No, it was.
It had to have been last year. She just recently had a baby.
No, it was last year's Slammiversary, right?
I think it was last year's Bound for Glory. Might have been, because I know that's shortly after
it couldn't be.
And had a baby.
It could have been. I think honestly, it was Slammiversary. That was the latter match because that's me, and I believe that was it. I mean, I'm probably wrong.
We'll check that out, and we'll post something on that, maybe on Facebook. But on a separate note, I want to congratulate the guys at Pro Wrestling Historical Society as news broke out, and we posted it on Facebook. The debut of their website is coming. Austin knows all about that, don't you, bud?
Yes, July 1st, they're going to be having the unveiling of Pro Wrestling Historical Society's new website, being uploaded with articles and about anything and everything. I mean, these guys are going to be doing it right, and they're so Jimmy Wheeler, Great Billy Turrican, Barry Rose. I'm thinking of a wrestler or something. The Barry, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about? Florida Championship Wrestling historian. I know his name is Barry, but also him and then H.K. Schwartz. They're all kind of tagged in along to make this website the best it can be. And I'm actually going to be part of writing the articles. I'm going to be doing it 2 times a month, and it's going to be the greatest articles you've ever read in your entire life. I'm not even kidding. And it's going to be posted up there on PWH. This is going to be really hard for me to say. Pro Wrestling Historical Society's website. I'm not going to say PWHS. I can't say that now. But it's going to be on their website, and I'm going to be doing articles for them, and it's going to be just a great thing for everybody that's a fan of history and professional wrestling, like Todd Keneley.
My goodness, dude, you may have just got a speed limit for how fast you just talked. Speed ticket.
I had a couple of them. Not even that. Pulled me over. He wasn't even.
You said it so fast. I swear you might have just had smoke coming out of your mouth. How fast you
the thing is, I can't pronounce when you're saying kind of abbreviate. That's why I hate abbreviations, because it's like when I'm saying PWHS.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, don't worry about it. I'm saying that PWHS. It's like saying it fast like that. I have to, for saying the website, I'm like Pro Wrestling Historical Society, which you can also check out on Facebook, and they have the group that's their mainstay. It's how they all started.
And you know what, though? I think that's a smart idea. And let me just put and kind of add to what you're saying there. Although the group is cool to have, and I'm definitely a fan reading a lot of the great material, it's definitely not enough. And I think the idea of putting the website in there, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm not saying that they will, because I don't know. I don't run it. I can't say. But I wouldn't be surprised if after the website goes live and going forward, if they decide to maybe close the group. I mean, it would make sense, because Jimmy and the rest of the guys are having to constantly repeat what is allowed and what is not.
Oh, my God.
When it's on the web, it would make sense to me, and you know what? That's just my opinion. I think it would be a really wise idea for them, but like I said, I don't want it. I have what I run, and Austin runs, and I'm sticking to that.
And I said this before, and not to dish out on Melina versus Alicia Fox, and supposedly, one of the greatest matches of all time. But that's not the group to talk about Melina versus Alicia Fox. It's more to talk about the 30s, 40s, 50s on up. That's it's more of the long-term history of professional wrestling, kind of focusing on how do we get to what we have today. But I mean, this isn't the group to talk about Melina versus Alicia Fox.
Agreed. And as we come down to the coming home close to the top of the hour, we wanted to just let you guys know we do have a guest who's come. Actually, not another guest, but a guest who's coming to the show next week, who was originally scheduled to be on the show earlier this month, due to complications, of course, and he not under the weather. He was under the weather, of course. He's getting over it, but by that time he definitely will be back at 100%. And who am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the trainer of champions, the one and only Big Billy Anderson. He was fresh off the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion in Vegas earlier this month, and we're going to bring him on to talk about his not only his wrestling career, but the chance that he's gotten to work and meet so many great people, but most notably his time working with the Ultimate Warrior and Sting.
Yes, he's met a lot of people. You type in Bill Anderson in Google, and you're not going to come up with a single picture of him. He's going to be like alongside so many different wrestlers. I mean, he's probably met every single wrestler in this world. I'm being sarcastic, but
that matter, every single celebrity that you can think of.
Yeah, he's a person who's been around the world twice. You know, he's been around the world a lot, and he's going to be taking over Pipebomb Radio next week, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We also got Nacho Mama's Radio coming back to you guys on Thursday at the same time, same station, with your hosts Oscar and Dreamy Mimi. And on occasion, of course, who usually stops in would be Sir Mo.
And you know the guests, I'm actually going to announce who the guests are going to be for this Thursday show. It's going to be, and it's so cool because the guest this week is actually going to be Lance, his name, Lance
Anoa'i?
Hold on. Anoa'i, that's his name. Cousins of The Rock, Rikishi, Yokozuna, the Usos.
He's part of that line.
Samoans are, a really big line. And then his father is actually Samu.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, you know what?
And,
I think I've seen that Sir Mo actually worked with Lance quite a bit. So, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And also, Jim Neidhart's going to be appearing on the show. He couldn't make it last weekend, but he will be making it on the show this coming weekend. And kind of as because he was supposed to come on last weekend, but some things happened, some unforeseen circumstances.
And it does happen.
He's going to be back on the show. And also, they're also, what's his name? Oscar is also going to be joined by Mo, Men on a Mission. That's what it's all about, and with the show this Thursday night at 8 p.m., I think that's the time, 8 p.m. Central. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific time. It will be 6 p.m. Central time.
Yes,
it takes
always unpredictable show.
All the time zones. Trust me, it took me years to get used to that. But you get used to it. But, I think that'll do it for us tonight. As most seen on my Facebook page, you follow me. A radio legend that passed away just recently, who I coined the phrase. I mean, obviously I got the phrase from him. The legendary Casey Kasem passed away just recently. He was the voice of Scooby-Doo, and for us older folks, he was Casey's Top 40, and that was a lot of fun. I always remember listening to it as a kid. Who doesn't love Scooby-Doo? I don't know anybody who doesn't. But rest in peace, sir, and I'll definitely keep the phrase going forever as long as I can on my radio show. With that being said, on behalf of Austin and myself, Felix, of course, with Pipebomb Radio, I would say keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Good night, everybody. Good night, Austin. Talk to you soon.
Good night.